Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are. This is your platform Opinion Sharer where we discuss issues, topical, national, and global issues. And we are here to do justice to another discussion this evening with individuals of repute to actually look into the conversation. I'm your host, Olaogun Michael Sukomi, and this evening we have the village boy joining us from Canada. We have Mr. Oluseun Eson joining us from UK, and we have Mr. Icho joining us from Nigeria, while Mr. Paul behind the engine joining us all the way from India. And we are indeed grateful to have you on this platform once again. And to our viewers out there, we are very grateful for always staying tuned to get ourselves educated and informed on issues happening around us. And just like I rightly said, we have individuals of repute to do justice to the Nigeria and the rising debt profile this evening. That was the topic of discussion. And if you recall, during the week, the Senate approved a loan request from the executive in tune of $1.5 billion and another 95 million euros, totaling 2.5 trillion naira. And then the basis of that is to fund the 2021 budget. And if you recall as well, in April 2021, the Senate equally approved another foreign loan of about 1.5 billion naira. That's naira, external borrowings for the federal government. And that is to tell you that in the space of 2 months, we have succeeded, or 2 months interval, Nigeria have succeeded borrowing loans. And you can recall that there have been series of loans upon loans in the past few months. So, and which is the basis of our conversation this evening. And before we go into the conversation proper, it is important to note that our debt profile as a nation now is totaling about 33.17 trillion naira. That's according to the Debt Management Office. So all of these will form the basis of our conversation this evening. But I encourage that you share this conversation so that other audience can join. So we go into the conversation proper. Yeah, okay, Mr. Isho is not here. I was thinking he would take the first question, being an international relation expert. But let me start with the village boy. Yeah, we have seen instances whereby national assets are being taken over by Chinese government or foreign government in some countries in Africa. And we have seen political actors, perhaps the Pan-African is talking about this issue of external borrowing. And I want to ask, can you imagine the rising debt profile in the country affecting our sovereignty as a nation? Over to you, the village boy. Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I always like to start by talking about fundamentals. What is it about borrowing? Do nations have to borrow? The answer is yes. And that answer fundamentally is even stronger because of the COVID pandemic that we are just trying to exit from. The reason being that during the COVID, income was low, expenses was rising. So it is not, most countries of the world at this time did borrow and are still borrowing. But then the other issue aspect of it, when you talk of fiscal discipline, when you talk of the impact of borrowing, that is the issue we should be concerned ourselves mostly with. So do we have the assurance that all this borrowing will be judiciously used and accounted for? Okay, apart from that, will the borrowing make economic impact so sure that whatever the money is spent on will be able to not only to service the debt itself, but to bring some returns in terms of dividends, what we call the dividend of democracy. So one of the issues you mentioned about the African countries who were overtly indebted to the Chinese government, some of them were taking most of their national assets. There are two fundamentals here. One, the terms of such loan, of course, is a major issue that maybe the policymakers in those countries did not pay attention to. And we cannot send our own policymaker in Nigeria as saints. We know that I've written something about this, saying that, hey, this guy don't even read the dotted line. They are only interested in whatever comes to their pocket. So for most, without being accused of defamation of character, I'm sure most of those who represent our interests in Nigeria don't usually take the diligence to know the conditions under which those loans are given. And that has been a recurrent decimal in our country. So that's one of the major things that could create fear in us that, okay, I hope this guy are not mortgaging us. So then that is on. Then we also know that our government functionaries have deep pockets, personal deep pockets. So, and I hope it's not going to be again of taking a basket to fetch rainwater again. And we all know what that means. It means we may see that rain fell on the basket, but we will not be able to see the water being contained by the basket. So, and again, another concern that should worry every right-thinking Nigerian is that when you say you are borrowing to finance the budget, we are looking at budget that is almost 70% recurrent, with almost 50% going for salaries and emoluments of government officials who may not be more than 5% of the population, and 30% going for capital expenditure, which was supposed to be generative expenditure. I mean, expenses on infrastructure that could generate further income. If only 30% of this borrowing is going to that aspect, that should give us some concern. And of course, we are not even guaranteed that we get value for our money for the 30%, because out of this 30%, only God knows how much will be stolen out of it. Maybe at the end of the day, if you get up to 10% of the total borrowing going into economic activity that could make impact in long term, then we say we are coming up gradually. So those are those fear that when you look at those one and you look at what is happening in other African countries today, whereby Chinese are literally taking over the management of the economy, then we say we may have sleepless nights about this borrowing spree. But I tell you, if we want to be sincere, I want to forget about the sentiment aspect of it. The COVID has brought a lot of pressure on, even in advanced countries, in Western countries, so-called, governments are borrowing because the tax revenue is just low, because people are losing their job, the economic activity is low and sluggish. So, but unfortunately, you also have to spend more money to ensure that the COVID incident does not prolong beyond necessary. So when you look at all these tragedies together, the answer is, do we need to borrow? Yes. Are we going to put the borrowing to good and effective use? Only government can answer that. But do we have the comfort that they would do? That's without. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Village Boy, for laying the foundation for this conversation. And just permit me to still push the question to Mr. Esho, judging from his, being an international relation expert. And the question was initially to go to, but Mr. Esho, let me ask you now. Judging from what is happening around African countries by which the Chinese government are taking over national assets, do you see any fear, or do you see our sovereignty being affected as a result of the incessant borrowing by the federal government? You may unmute your microphone.
Repeat the question.
All right, the question was, judging from what is happening across African countries, the Village Boy already laid foundation to that discussion, but I want to hear your view. Do you see our sovereignty being affected as a nation because of these incessant borrowings? I think we are having we lost him there. Let me move over to Mr. Sheung. Mr. Sheung, now the Minister of Finance have issued statement over and over again telling us that all is well with our economy and there is no room for fear with all the borrowings of the federal government. Should such statement be taken seriously, or should we just fold our hands and see things go the way it is?
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. And I want to also appreciate every distinguished and eminent people who are on the panel. I really appreciate the foundation that Mr. Oladile laid. It's very, very fine. And to go to your question, Michael, now, there's something I've always said, and this is very critical to me. The ways of policy making in the world has become sophisticated. Unfortunately for me, this is fundamental. And I like the fundamental part that as regards borrowing that Mr. Oladile brought to bear. But I would also like to put a thing there.
Oluwadele is actually, sorry for jumping.
Sorry about
just call me
that.
Village Boy so that you don't miss it up again.
Oluwadele, I will not miss that again. Sorry about that. So what I'm saying is the fact that presently, when you are a policymaker in a country, you are not just a policymaker in your country. You are also working in competition with the sophisticated policy of other countries. No country now exists in isolation. And thus, when you make economic decisions for your country, you are not just basing your decision on what is happening in your country, but you have to take into cognizance what is happening with IMF, with the Bretton Woods institutions, with other countries. And so why am I saying all this? So before I would take the words of the Honorable Minister of Finance, serious or not, I want to see what has been her trajectory since she came into the office. How has it been since she was appointed till now? Which I think is in 2019, if I'm right, when the former minister left office and she had to come on board. Now, the truth of the matter is the fact that we have kept borrowing since that period. And then we now go to the question of the Village Boy. How has the borrowings been managed? For what reason are we borrowing? To eat? Are we eating the loans, or we are investing them? And if we are investing them, are there value for money for such investments? Are those loans for recurrent expenditure or not? And so it is when the Honorable Minister of Health could answer this question either in the affirmative or to deny, then that is when we can take whatsoever political statement she made serious or not. And so, as such, based on the critical past that the economy has come through, no doubt, and in fairness to every government in the world presently, the world is going through some unprecedented pandemic, which at least has not been seen in decades past. But the truth is that many other countries are actually doing better than we are doing. And then we have to sit tight as a nation, because even before the pandemic, Nigeria was in dire straits economically. And we cannot continue to hide that fact. And coming into dire straits, we did not get there overnight. We actually got there through consistent carelessness in planning and in policy making. And from my projections and from what economists have said, we are going to a point that we may have to pay up to 3.12 trillion annually from 2021 to service loans. And that is if the benchmark of oil, because oil is almost the only thing we are reliant on. And this implies that up to probably 50% or more of our natural of whatsoever earnings we make are going to service debts, then any serious person should actually be concerned. And so if the Honorable Minister of Finance came out to say, okay, so there's nothing to fear about, we are in control, we have not seen that. States are not paying salaries. Livelihoods have been affected. People are losing jobs. The growth of the GDP is actually declining. Inflation rates are high. And what are we doing? So these are the critical questions to ask. It's not just the political statement of the Honorable Minister, in all fairness to her, to say that all is well. We should look at what are the factors, what are the indicators, what are the indices that tells us all is well or not. Many countries in the world are borrowing, but they are a trajectory for borrowing. And I think I need to stop there before I bring in another thing that is completely unrelated. But I need to make that point that before you take the words of any politician serious, most especially coming from where we are coming from as a nation, we have had so many political statements from politicians over the years, year in, year out, and then there's nothing to prove. There's no evidence, there's no basis to actually believe such statements in the future. And so that's my concern.
All right. Thank you so much for that contribution, sir. And Mr. Isho, we have you now back on the stream. Let me ask you. The present administration have campaigned, of course, they are still campaigning, or is the language in their mouth about the economic diversification. And I asked myself, if the economic diversification policy had worked, I mean, as it were, would there have been need by the present administration to be borrowing money almost on monthly basis? Let me put it that way. Please kindly unmute yourself. Kindly unmute your microphone. Oh, we lost him again. I think because of his network. Nigeria is happening to him. Mr. Paul, please, before we have him on board again, I want you to critique that question. Assuming the economic diversification policy of Buhari's administration had worked, would there have been need for them to be borrowing in such a manner as it is?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. I think, to be honest with ourselves, looking at the world right now, we would know that, or would agree, that it might be actually difficult for any country to be diversifying at this time. Now, I'm hoping that your question is before now. I don't think there's any government in Nigeria that has actually made critical steps to diversify from the oil. And the reason is because it is easy. You know, if any form you get oil crude out, you will see somebody that will buy easy and, quick money. And I think we have gotten too used to quick money that we have forgotten about the future. Permit me to say, I may be wrong, but I think there's a part of me that thinks like that an average Nigerian likes sharp, success. You want to make it quick. And I think because we've been able to support ourselves with the use of sharp money or sharp resources, that's why we've not been able to diversify. So all the diversification of the Buhari administration, I would want to say it has been, political statements. It has been just, they are saying it because they know that people don't even ask questions. Many people don't ask questions. But for now that, a lot of people are raising questions. People are now talking and raising their voices and saying, and, I'm beginning to ask questions. And I think it is commendable, but we need to do more. Now, when you look at China, for instance, I've read some of some reviews about the foreign loan that China is giving to, especially poor countries. There's this DW. There's an article published by them. They describe it as an ambitious global infrastructure investment strategy, which involves 60 poor countries. right? So they are deliberately, China is deliberately targeting about 60 poor countries of the world, you know, and lending them money. There was another article published by another news media saying that I think between year 2000 and 2020, China has given out about $36 billion. All right, and this is what they do is they have individuals, you know, that's liaising between the state banks and these poor countries. Now, like the village boy laid a good foundation in terms of there's no crime about taking loan. All the countries of the world are taking loan. I think my own fear personally is the fact that I don't trust them. I don't trust them to be able to do what they said they will do with the loan. Okay? And I consider that a big challenge. I think that's the major challenge that we have with them. I worked in the railway before. Okay? So look at all the investment in railway in the last 20 years of democracy has been political. As in, there has not been any one of these investments that can actually, bring about profit. Look at the Lagos Ibadan train. It has, I think, maximum of 8 coaches. How can you make business from that? How can these are the kind of investment that they are investing billions in? How do they want to make proceeds from that? They can't even maintain that train with the earnings. Talk less of paying salaries. Talk less of paying back the loans. And I learned recently there was somebody that made a statement that about 90-point-something% of our earnings is going to loan servicing. So it's obvious they've done poorly in terms of diversification. And I think it will be unfair to even talk about diversification, especially at this moment where we are now. And unfortunately for us again, the world is already, EU, I saw a news a few days ago that EU already have a benchmark of 2035 that they will completely stop anybody from buying the vehicles or buying or selling vehicles that use any kind of oil that can pollute the environment. So if we don't take advantage of what we have now, unfortunately, we've not been able to do so. But I don't know, you know, we're in a difficult position. I'll stop for now.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Esho, I think you are here with us now, if I'm correct. Can kindly unmute yourself so that we can hear you clearly.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I know you have some reactions to earlier contributions. Please go ahead. Oh, we lost him again. Hello, are you there with us? Oh, no. So now to the village boy. I think, let me put this to you. Now we are told that 60% of the revenue being generated in the country goes into okay, Mr. Esho, you are back here with us. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. What is your reaction to earlier contributions being made by the panelists?
Yes, on diversification, I don't really think the current administration is serious about the promise of diversification. One can justify it through the recent PIB, when Nigeria still jubilating for discovering oil in the northern part of the country. A serious country that wants to diversify and still investing more and more on the oil. So when you look at the conversation, you will discover that it is paradoxical. When you tend to diversify and you are still investing more and more on the same mono product that you want to diversify from. Unfortunately, the oil is the major source of revenue for Nigeria. But when it comes to the refinery, which I believe ought to have fetched us more revenue, we could not refine a tablespoon, despite the fact that Nigeria still paying the professionals. In fact, the data available in March 2021 said FD Refinery earned 21 billion and lose 778 billion in 5 years, which means in refinery, the amount we've expended, we could not get even 10% of it, simply because we have not been refining anything. It is only a country here that is producing 7th in the world. At the same time, take the same product to the advanced climb to get it refined and take it back to the country. Unfortunately, again, we are using dollar in exchange, and that is why Nigeria currency is as useless as anything. That is one area. The second area is agriculture. You remember that the genesis of this country, we built on agriculture, especially when we at regional stage. In Southwest, Southwest was leading in agric. In fact, when you look at the flag of Nigeria, green, white, green, that symbol represents two things, agric and peace. The two are no longer available now. You now see the challenge or challenges facing us in the country. People are trying to invest on agriculture. I've made a typical example of myself 3 years ago. I cultivated 1 hectare of a farm, which I have planted series of items like maize, like guinea corn. Unfortunately, after 2 months, when I was about to get it harvested, the Fulani led
Oh, I think he's having the network itch there. So we hope we have him back again. And now to the village boy. My question to you was, how do we balance our
a
revenue to
country
the
that
rising?
promised to diversify and still facing multifaceted challenges in that particular agric, which is farming. Today, hardly could you see our farmers able to move to their farming center simply because they have been afraid of being kidnapped or being killed. So, agric that we tend to diversify, we are now facing a serious challenges. People are planted, but they could not visit their farm any longer. That is why one of the most expensive things in Nigeria today is food items. I am a businessman. I know how much you are selling semo, how much you are selling beans. What you are producing is now more expensive, even than the rice we are importing. So what policy the government want to tell us? That if we will make
Okay, I think we have to hold him on there. To the village boy, please, how do we balance our revenue to the rising debt profile? Putting into consideration that over 60%, as we have, I mean, several reports have it, over 60, some reported 70% of our revenue generated goes into debt servicing. How do we actually balance the revenue?
Well, thank you very much. I think if what the budget as budget it, or what do you call it, is anything to go by, I think we are spending more than 60% to service our debt, maybe close to 97%. A lot of issues here. Our tax system is still very inefficient. People don't literally pay tax. Those who have money don't pay. The poor people are made to pay tax in Nigeria. And again, we have challenges with our record keeping. There are a lot over time, over the years, because money was coming from oil revenue. I think government were not so much mindful of having a robust tax system. They've been trying to do something in that regard, but it's still very inadequate and insufficient. Now, when you don't produce, Even this oil that we make noise about, sorry to use the word noise, my position has been that we are not an oil producing country. We have oil, but we don't produce it. It's the shell of this world, it is the mobile of this world that are producing our oil. Nigerian government, as stand today, don't know how many barrels we produce every day. They don't have the records. The shell have more record and they tell us what they want to tell us. These are facts that have been contested over time and nothing has been done about it. So when you don't produce, you cannot generate much revenue because production increases revenue. I have said this on this forum before. Those of us who are aging gradually, if you go to Lagos, you go to Ikeja industrial area, you go to Matori industrial area, you go to Upper industrial area, you go to Dosley out in Ibadan, you go to the same one in Bompai, Kano, or you go to Kakuri in Kaduna, or you go to Aba is still trying because of clothing and other things, and you go to Unewi, and you go to all this country, about this state, all this area, you know, if you look what has become, if you see what has become of our industrial hubs, you will weep for the country. It's like Lagos is even worse because most of those big factories have become worship centers. Churches are buying buildings of collapsed industries. So we pray more than we generate revenue. And I'm not against prayer. Prayer is good. But the Bible itself that many of us walk and pray. We have left work, we have left working to be praying only. And when you pray and you don't work, you can't generate revenue. So civil service, that is why up to today, about 70% of the budget goes to pay salaries. So how do you sustain that? Most of the thing we do is not sustainable. On top of the lean revenue that we have, there's also some massive stealing. So when you now put all this together, it's like we are in dire straits. You even want to ask us, how is the country even surviving? Mr. Ajo was said about talking about the issue of that's a classical example. He had a 1 hectare of farm, by himself. When it was time for harvest, he could not harvest. So the labor labored in vain. Their food is becoming very expensive. So our revenue base is very weak. And unfortunately, we have a lifestyle, especially those in government, we have a very fragrant lifestyle. We are a consuming nation. In fact, there's no luxury in the world that you will not find in Nigeria. There is no automobile, no matter how expensive, that you will not find on the street of Nigeria. Even though the roads are not worthy, the roads are not good, the roads are like pothole invested. But then we keep on buying these automobiles. And you go to the airport, the sheer number of private jets, which we don't produce, we don't even produce the spare part of those private jets. So we are kind of people that permit me to use the word Yoruba later, who are, instead of increasing your wealth, as you are not throwing it, you are giving it, you are selling it off. We are like a gambler. Our nature is like a huge gamblers of people. We are gambling with our future. We are gambling with our lives. Our revenue base is nothing to write home about. Everything is kind of in shambles. So if you want to fix our country, we have to fix so many things. We have to find a way where we can get the people, get back to work, create a kind of industrial hubs along knowledge, along IT infrastructures, along telecommunications and stuff like that. So that is the only thing that you can be thinking of. Now, when you talk of revenue base, it is lamentable because we don't really have a strong base. We are so dependent on oil revenue that we have closed our eyes to other income generating sources. So businesses are moving away from Nigeria to Ghana, and the sad part of it, 70% of what they are producing in Ghana are being sold in the Nigerian market. You talk of Dunlop, talk of Michelin. Recently, Toyota assembly is set up in Ghana. I can bet you with my last cent that 60% or more what they are going to produce in Ghana, Toyota are going to produce in Ghana, will be sold in Nigeria. So we are look at how much we are spending even to send students to Ghana. Ghana before that used to come to our school, to UI, to uni like those days. Today, we send our children, we spend billion of naira sending children to Ghana. So it's like we know how to spend. We don't know how to make money. Nigeria today doesn't know how to make money. Nigerians are good at spending. And when you talk that there's imbalance, there's even domestic imbalance. And most people that we trade with, look at it, the record, trade balance has never been in our favor. We give less, and I mean we give out more and receive less because we don't produce anything. There is nothing. When you are even exporting cocoa, what are you doing? You are exporting raw cocoa at the price not determined by you. So, but that your revenue that you get from cocoa, you cannot even use it so to buy a bar of chocolate. You have to look for other money to add to it to buy chocolate. The same thing, you exchange that, you take out our crude oil, and we pay more for refined products. So it is always, we always end up in negative. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, the village boy, for the submission. Now I just want to encourage our viewers. You are on to opinion sharers, and we are discussing about Nigeria and the rising debt profile. And as you may know, on this platform, we don't only discuss about problem, we equally profile solutions that will actually engender national growth. Now to Mr. Sheung. Now, looking at the capital expenditure, we know that the recurrent is far greater. What goes to the recurrent is greater than the capital expenditure, and of course, the capital expenditure does not in any way generate revenue. Just like Mr. Paul and the village boy laid the foundation. The question now to you is this: how can we ensure that all of this, at least no matter how minute it may be, the capital expenditure we are putting into the nation generates revenue for us?
Thank you very much, Michael. I think it's straightforward, and the ball is in our court as a country. I'll pick up some of the things that Mr. Oluwadele, the village boy, said, and then take it on from there. So there's this part that we are a consuming nation, and we cannot contend that fact. But every other nation in the world consumes. The system is what actually precludes you to know if you are consuming or makes you balance out your expenses and consumption. So every other person in the world wants to buy fancy cars. But then, if there is a senator that can afford to bring in 3 fancy cars and find his way around paying the usual tax on the importation of such fancy cars, then it's not us as a people, definitely, but there's a system, there's a weakened system around us that makes everything in Nigeria. Now, somebody is burying his mother somewhere in Nigeria today, and the caskets were imported to be buried into the heart for several millions of naira. Now, I'm not going to sit here to dictate how somebody is going to spend the money he made, either legitimately or not, I don't know. But the truth is that there should be check and balances. There are nations on the world that before you buy a bar of chocolate, at least 30% or up to 20% of that amount that you are paying for a bar of chocolate in the supermarket goes into tax. You don't even negotiate that, and you don't even know. You just pay, and then the supermarket already pays back. And so there should be checks and balances, and these are built in strong institutions. And so if we are here to talk about the way forward is how we are going to build strong institutions that is not going to see business as usual in what the government does. Now, let me bring in a second perspective. In Nigeria, the activities of government are not business oriented. We don't run government like a business entity in Nigeria. We run government like a community water, a community pool. So a community stream that everybody goes there, draws, wash clothes, messes up, and leave. Because nobody is answerable to anybody. So there are no even check and balances between government parastatals. The three-tier system of government is not even working, and they are not answerable and accountable. So there's what we call in policy making horizontal accountability and vertical accountability. It doesn't happen anywhere in Nigeria. And such that you see a government. So when you talk about recurrent expenditure, the fact is, if I work for a company and the company pays my salary, it is only fair on the part of my employer to look at how much I am adding in value to that company in a particular financial year. And it is based on that I will be paid. And the months that I do not make sufficient, or in a year that I do not make sufficient profit for the organization that is going to pay my salary, is either I get a pay cut or I go home. But in Nigeria, you see people who go to work every day, go there to do nothing, and then they get paid at the end of the month because salary has become philanthropy. So Nigerian government, only God knows from when, has been running at a loss, and nobody runs government like that. I was studying a local government in the UK recently, and when I was speaking to top officials from there, they do not get politicians to run the local government. They get a chief executive officer to run the local government, and they recruit like they recruit for a bank manager. So it's only the council members who are councillors who are elected, and the CEO of the local government must be apolitical, such that from year to year they review his performance. They review how much comes into the local government and how much goes out, and see if there is enough left to pay salaries. So the truth is that we must live from doing government as usual. Everything in life, even running a family, is a business. If I have a child, if I have a family and I have a child that is consuming so much, and at a point I'm not bringing in so much into the family, we're going to run at a loss. And that is what is happening in Nigeria. The government is running everything at a loss. We say we are in recession. We say there is pandemic, but it has not reflected in the numbers of cars in the convoy of the president. It has not reflected in the numbers of cars of the personal assistant to the personal assistant of the gatesman in the Aso Rock. And you see personal assistant having a retinue of aides, and all of them are drawing from here, from what we call the national cake. So for as long as we continue to see the resources of the country as a national cake, we'll continue to run at a loss. And for as long as we continue to run government and governance at a loss, then we are not heading anywhere serious. So it doesn't matter where we borrow money from. Borrow from IMF, World Bank. I have the list here. And lastly, before I take a pause, I would also like to say that the people, there are two parties to this. There is the government, there is the people. I definitely would be shy to say that it's the people in Nigeria that is the problem. I would say that it is the people who organizes the country that is the problem. You know why? We say we don't pay tax. People don't pay tax in Nigeria. People find ways out of tax. I just read news of how Dangote is being given concessions at the expense of other countries. Which country does that? You leave capital, you give capitalist concession in an economy that is going grand, that is being run a grand. Nobody does that. What you do is you give a level playing ground. You allow as many people, both foreigner and the indigenous company, to thrive, to compete, and then to pay taxes. You don't give such concessions. Not when your economy is in dire straits. And that is what we have been doing consistently. So this is even beyond the people. Nigerians are hardworking people. Nigerians can survive in any climate. And that is why you see inflation rates are high and things like that. People still manage to drive fancy cars. And many of them are actually doing good works. But the truth and the fact is that before you drive your fancy car, you should, when there are institutions in place in America or in the UK or in Canada where Mr. Oluwadele is, you will not just buy a fancy car or a fancy house. You have to think twice because you know how much goes back in tax to the government. And so nobody has to preach to you. Nobody has to sermonize you that you are a consuming nation or you are not. It's just common sense. But when we have a way around every single formal institutions in Nigeria, customs, institution generation, how many of the politicians even pay taxes? So these are the issues. And so when you ask the government, when you ask the people to make sacrifices, how many sacrifices have the people in Aso Rock made because we're in dire straits? So as there are retinue of aides who are coming to backbite in the office and use office internet for whatsoever, and then go home at the end of the day and respect salaries, how have they paid? How has the politicians paid? I'm sorry I've taken so much time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ashun, for that contribution. And you have snowballed into another conversation entirely. And there has been arguments, even scholarly arguments over and over again, that there is no business of government in business. That government only needs to create enabling environment. And perhaps that's the basis of what we are facing today. Trajectories, things are changing across the world. And I think on that note, I would love Mr. Paul to actually give his submission to that. Do you agree with that notion, of course, that there is no business of government in business? And because we are not running the government institutions, just like Mr. Ashim pointed out, as business firms, as it were.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. I was following Mr. Sheung. Village boy said we should say Mr. So, all right.
Sheung is actually better. Sheung sounds better.
All right. Thank you. See, I love the fact that you pointed out a lot of things, and I think there may be hope for us. Hopefully that. Let's open that many Nigerians or many more Nigerians continue to talk, and talking implies that we would have opportunity to, sensitize others, give information that would help the other people who might be listening. As we're talking, I jotted down some things here on my phone. And one of the first things that I jotted down, looking at solution now, is that we don't have strong institutions in Nigeria. I've been saying it over and over and over again that Nigeria in the last maybe 20, 30 years has only succeeded in building strong individuals, a few strong individuals, while collapsing and perhaps deliberately destroying our institutions. And as long as we continue on that road, there is no hope. Okay? No institution, no country can survive by the power or strength of individuals. It is only institutions that can sustain a country like Nigeria. All right? Now, number two is something that you also mentioned, and I'm going to give an example of India. Being the fact that I've lived in India and seen a lot of things and studied the development that is happening in India, both at local and the central level. India has, they have, come let me accept this man. The Nigeria is happening to him seriously. I was talking to somebody yesterday that if Nigerian youth would be, if they should be angry, one of the major reasons they should be angry at this government is the fact that they don't have access to the internet. But unfortunately, when you don't have access, when you don't have something, you probably don't know what you don't have. So you don't get angry with for not having internet. Honestly, and Nigerians, especially those who are youth now, if you know what you are losing by not having access to the internet or strong internet, you would be mad, naturally mad. And I think the government should expect that. But then, that is by the way. Now, I was talking about a system of recruitment in India. I think it's a part of their civil service commission. They call them IAS officer. Okay, so this IAS officer, they are the ones that is responsible for for managing policies and implementing administration and policies of both central and state government policies. Now, one of the strictest process of recruitment is what they go through. It's only the best of the best that gets recruited. Once they recruit them, they send them all across the country, just like they post military officers to different stations in Nigeria. That's how they post these IS officers. They pay them. In fact, I think they are the most. They earn more than anybody else. The way people respect them in every university student in India wants to become an IAS officer. Your parents will be preaching and praying that you become an IAS officer. But this is something that you would have to give your best. They will test your mathematics skill. They will test your people skill. They will test your politics, your understanding of policies and the way the world understands. They will even test you in terms of mental ability, critical thinking, and all of these things. And then it's in phases. You have to go through 3 processes before you eventually get hired. Until we go to this extent, where we have our best managing our resources and policies and administration, we are not going to go anywhere. So, I'm just saying it here. I don't know if I wish if I know a politician who might be able to, introduce this kind of a thing to them. But I don't think the way we are doing now. Look at the people that are in civil service in Nigeria today. People just go there. There are civil service servants in Nigeria who don't go to work for months or for weeks, rather. Especially those posted to rural areas. And look at our teachers. The current economy of the world is economy that is dependent on knowledge, not oil. Not even any natural resources, those ones which we have that has been abandoned. So I think before it is too late, we should start making serious investment in education, in the knowledge economy, such that maybe in the next 5 years or 10 years, we might begin to reap from it. Because if we don't do so, the best of Nigerian students would eventually escape from Nigeria. And there are other countries around the world that are waiting, to take advantage of them, and then we'll be left on our own. They will be sending small dollars to Nigeria, and then that will be anyway. I think I'll stop here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Paul, and thank you, Mr. Esho. We have you back on the stream now. Before I go to Village Boy, let me quickly ask you this. It's an international affairs matter. I was in a vehicle yesterday. We got this argument on, and there was this question that why do Nigeria need to borrow money when we have over 4 point something billion dollars in our in foreign reserve. I think about 4.7 billion dollars thereabout, because these are things that they will ordinarily look at. And you see, when our governors want to gang up, they come against the presidency, just like we have seen in previous evenings of elections in the country. But if I may put to you, why is it that, but for the education of the public, that we have to go borrowing when we have money kept in the in foreign reserve? Oh, I think we lost him again. Oh, perhaps we have him on board along the line. Village boy, can you please help us do justice to the question?
What? Sorry, can you go over the question again?
Yeah, the argument has been that Nigeria will have money in the foreign reserve in tune of over 40 billion US dollar thereabout. And the question is, why do we have to go borrowing over and over again, almost every day, when we can easily use money from the foreign reserve to fund whatever we have in the country, mind you? And the argument also centers around the governors ganging up, pressing the throat of the presidency anytime they feel like, okay, it is the evening of the election, we can actually get the presidency or the executive to do our bidding.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have to understand certain the way nation is run. There are certain fundamentals that you cannot wish away. I don't know how I can make this as simple as possible for everybody to understand. If you are a farmer, okay, let me try the village wisdom now. If you are a farmer, if you are a farmer and you say because you are very hungry, the yam seedling for the next season, you want to consume it. I think I wrote a poem like that. So if you not eat everything, so the foreign reserve is more like ilagbe. It's like yam seedling that you keep aside for emergency, and every country in the world keep that. It's almost unavoidable, because what you are saying is like, if there's an emergency where you don't earn revenue due to some forces of nature beyond your control for a long period of time, what do you fall back on? Then also, this foreign reserve too is one of the, is like unwritten collateral for people to lend you money. If you don't have foreign reserve, nobody will give you a dime. No country will give you a dime. When you need it, they will not give you. So I think people think that they are using this basic idea of like that of prodigal child in the Bible, who said, "Look, why should I wait?" He asked his father, "Give me what belongs to me. Let me start my own life." And the man gave him. But how did it end? It ended in a very disastrous way. So, foreign reserve is not something that you do when you. It's not like those are your passbook where you have money in your savings account, and each time you are broke, you just carry your ATM card and you go and withdraw it. And you know that at the end of the month, you are going to, maybe in the next 2 months, you are going to pay your house rent, and you are paying yearly on yearly basis. But each time you see money in your savings account, you have the attraction to go to your ATM and withdraw it. So you keep on withdrawing, then you withdraw up to zero. Then your rent is due. They will say that there's a proverb, local proverb, that a family, a couple cannot say that they are not aware they are going to have naming ceremony. When you know when your wife is pregnant, you know it will take 9 months. That when the child is born in 9 months, you can't now claim with glory that you didn't know, you are not prepared. You are supposed to prepare for the naming, right? Because pregnancy ordinarily will take 9 months, 7 months when there's a premature delivery, all that. So I think it is a lack of knowledge for people to say, okay, why are we keeping money for a reserve when we could spend that one, spend it to zero rather than borrow? It doesn't work that way. Again, when you borrow, ideally, when you borrow from other people, it gives you that sense of responsibility, the sense of urgency to produce, because you know this is not a free gift. It's just like when a business takes a loan from the bank, the business knows that it's going to pay that loan back, and the business try to work extra harder so that they can generate revenue above the loan they have acquired. So that is the essence of those things. So even in basic account, that's what we call working capital management. Working capital is like the amount, is like the oil that you need to, something to run the wheel of progress. So foreign reserve is a necessity, and the more prosperous you are as a country, the more the higher your foreign reserve will be. So, and that is how the world is configured to run. A country without the foreign reserve, nobody, no country will give such a country any loan. Even no international business you want to do business with, because there is no recourse to them to get their money back if you fall flat. I think it is a misunderstanding of the purpose and the essence of foreign reserve to ask, okay, government would rather spend the money foreign reserve are grand before they can rather borrowing. And for government officials who might be putting pressure, they are not putting pressure mainly on the foreign reserve. There's another account that was created during the Obasanjo regime to put excess revenue from
SS crude account. SS crude account.
SS crude account. It's SS crude account that politicians, especially governors, will always force the president to say, okay, let us share the money. Again, because of our consuming instinct, we usually use this money to consume. They don't use that money to build infrastructure. So take for instance, if Lagos Ibadan Expressway, that is just about 129 kilometers, has been under construction since 1999. 129 kilometers. That is when you are taking it from Toge to Ojo, not Toge to Toge. Toge to Toge is about 100 kilometers. So can you imagine the number of wastage on that road? The road that should take you 1 hour is taking you 6 hours. Then there is the insecurity on the road. There is the wear and tear on the vehicle. All these things are leakages on individual pockets. If I'm running a business, let's say for instance, Coca-Cola produces in Ibadan, in Lagos, and is taking the product to Ibadan. Look at the number of man-hour that is lost. Look at the fuel that is burnt. That is for a company. For individuals, you want to run your business, you consume more gas, you waste more hours. Because Nigeria, I said this sometimes, somebody said I should not say it again, I was creating fear in people. We take salary, we don't earn our salary. Civil service don't earn salary. They just take it. Every month they take money. They don't earn, they don't work for it. Some don't go to work, and when they go to work, they spend 3 or 4 hours at work. Out of that 4 hours, they use 1 hour to gist about. If it is on Monday, they just at the party at the weekend. Then if it is during the weekday, they, of course, with social media. And you see what is going on IG? You see Instagram? You see what one guy posted on Facebook? They wasted time. They are not productive because the number of hours spent on work has nothing to do with what they get paid. So those are the issues we should address. We cannot survive as a country without having a foreign reserve. So, and it's the foreign reserve itself that gives you the leverage to borrow. Like I said from the beginning, borrowing is not the problem. It is what you use with the borrow fund that is the issue. So I think we should be able to face the issue fundamentally. Yeah. Those who are accusing government of borrowing, they may be right because there is no trust Not that there's nowhere there is challenge of trust in every government in the world. Even in the advanced countries, so-called, it's not every government that will be trusted by the people. They will always do what you don't like. So that is not the issue. But when the trust index is in the negative, that is a major problem. So we cannot but have foreign reserve. But when we begin to become productive and generate more money rather than spending more money, even the foreign reserve will rise. It's expected to rise so that if there's any emergency, we have something to recourse to. I mean, to dip hands, to take part of, not to take everything anyway. So I think it's a misunderstanding of the purpose at the end of foreign reserve for people to say, okay, why keeping foreign reserve when you can why borrowing when you have foreign reserve? Why don't just withdraw the money in your foreign reserve and pay? Just like I said, just like withdrawing all the money in your savings account, then when your rent is due, what do? You do fine bara.
Thank you, village boy. Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation you have provided, and I think that already answers the question to our audience viewing who that may have similar question or perception at heart. Now to Mr. Ishowo. Now you locally at home here, you know that there has been this counter acquisition and over acquisition between the APC and the PDP about this issue of borrowing under Buhari-led administration, and when reference was made to the 8th Assembly under the leadership of Senator Bukola Saraki, it was argued that Saraki never gave room for this SS borrowing, and which actually at that time possibly led to why there was some imbroglio between them all along. And now that all of these are happening, they have labeled the present leadership of the National Assembly as rubber stamp, because when we are looking at all of these, there is no way we won't trace them to the National Assembly, because the executive cannot just borrow without the approval of the National Assembly. What do you make of the National Assembly in the approval of all of these loans over and over again? Mr. Ishowo, you have the floor. Kindly unmute yourself.
Thanks for having me back. That is Nigeria Factor. So related to your question, why are we borrowing in the first instance? That's the question we need to ask. And why the borrowing has become an incessant activity during this administration, especially right from 2018. I came in 2016, they call it budget of change. It moved from 5 billion or 4.5 to 6 point something. In 2021, we budgeted 13 trillion. And, you know, if you are making such budgets, as bogus as it is, quote unquote, because the whole budget of Nigeria is equal to what South Africa budgeting for education alone, $30 billion. You know, we call it 13 trillion here. But when you are borrowing or when you make a budget provision, you need to look at your revenue base. In a situation whereby a government of change made the provision of 13 trillion naira, and the entire revenue base yearly is around 7.2 billion, 7.2 trillion naira. It means slightly above 50% is what the government is going to generate. So for us to have made such pronunciation of 13 trillion, definitely we need to look elsewhere to finance such budget, especially when we're having such dwindling, revenue base. So until we look at the size of our revenue and we use that to determine the amount we are going to budget. But if it is about figure, 13 trillion, Michael, let me tell you, the 13 trillion, the so-called 30 trillion of 2021 is just likely above 4.5 trillion of 2014, going by the exchange rate. At that time, it was 160 something at exchange stage. Today, it's close to 400 naira, equal to $1 by official exchange rate. So having 30 trillion without having a commensurate revenue generation, definitely this kind of incessant borrowing will continue until and unless the federal government think of how to improve on the revenue, what do you call it, revenue generation base by extending the tax net, because by statistics available, less than 20% is on the tax net in Nigeria. In advanced country where Village Boy came from, Canada, there, you see how people are paying tax. My friend from UK, even my friend from India, there, they are ensuring that people are captured in the tax net. But in Nigeria today, even the big ones, the big wigs, not intend to pay. The government are not intend to pay. People are having exotic cars in number, they having mansions in number, they having jets in number, and they don't pay money for this. So that is why we need to look inward, that as we have planned to increase the budget, figure, we need to think of how to improve on our revenue base if we want to reduce the essence at which we're approaching international community for loan. Because as of today, I read it maybe 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago when they say each Nigeria, an African Nigeria, owing 270 something thousand because of when we define the numbers of population by the loan we have obtained 32 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. So when you divide it by population of 200 million, you discover that we each an African Nigeria own international community money to pay back. So in essence, for us to think of how to get it reduced, the governors too, they need to look inward by increasing on their IGR. If they are increasing their IGR, definitely they will have money that are going to finance the budget I've made the provision for. At the center, the government at the center. It's not about coming to the National Assembly yearly, making 15 trillion of a budget without thinking of how to get the revenue that we commensurate. If at the end of the day, you have little amount, to make the balance, definitely we go along with it. Because in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, we borrowed less than 1 trillion naira to finance the budget. But in 2020, Michael, when you look at the amount Nigerian paid at the self-servicing, was slightly above. So funny. The money earmarked for the capital project. It is only in Nigeria we see that. We use 2.4 trillion naira for the capital project, and we pay 2.95 for debt service in 2020. What a country is that? And when you look at this 2021, out of that 13 trillion naira, we have slightly above 7 trillion as the revenue base, which means we have the shortage of 5.2 to finance it. Definitely, they will continue approaching the National Assembly to obtain the loan. But unfortunately, the kind of National Assembly we're having, they have said it before now that whatever Mr. President presents before them, they are going to approve it. That was the genesis of being rubber stamped. So if National Assembly that is statistically empowered to control the pulse of the executive, find it really difficult to dissect what exactly Mr. President wants to borrow the money for. Even the amount you have borrowed, the project you have financed, compared to what is obtainable in African countries. Bridges we are doing, the rail we are doing, compare it with the what they are doing in African country on the same margin. You now discover that the amount you are expending, it's far better, far away from what they are spending in African countries out there. So we look at this, even from the angle of procurement. In National Assembly, I noticed that a poll, for instance, officially is going to be made officially maybe at 1 million naira. And at the end of the day, if contractor goes to the market, what we made up of a poll is less than 400,000 naira, which means the rest is 100,000 is in the control of few individuals. Government is spending money lavishly. The money that is expected to be used for the other infrastructure development will be charged on, on the contract. So until we look at all these wastages, we look at we set the priority on whatever I want to do. Federal government need to think of, okay, it's not at the time that they will do everything. Set the priority. This is what you want to do in this also year, and this is how much you are going to borrow. But if you are servicing, close to 70% of your revenue to service debt, it is only a country like Nigeria that will say that. Until the federal government, sincerely, until the federal government think of outside boss on how to generate revenue, so that whatever the budget figure Mr. President presents, we should know that at least 80% of this will be financed by our revenue. If
Thank you,
not,
sir.
if it's about having 14 trillion, 15 trillion, at the end of the day, what you are going to generate annually is slightly above 50%, then we are not serious. And we're in a
Thank
country
you.
whereby what is goes, please, for the recurrent expenditure, far better than what goes to the capital expenditure. And we see the deficiency on infrastructural development. If I continue talking on and on and on, Nigeria is sick, and we're having a leader that do not think in line with the 21st century leaders until we change our recruitment leadership. Recruitment leadership in the sense that not about bringing somebody anyhow. Let's scrutinize, let's see the mental capacity and articulation of anybody that want to represent right from the local government to the state and the federal level. But necessarily whereby we're thinking of this person is closer to us, this person is
Thank you.
performing this type, this person performing this religion as the basis, then Nigeria will not move forward. I wonder why we still call ourselves Giants of Africa when we know that in infrastructure wise, in salary wise, in welfare wise, in security wise, we are below the bar.
I can see that. I mean, you are getting very emotional about the situation, but as the nation where we all found, we have found ourselves. Definitely, we keep engaging. Thank you so much for the contribution, Mr. Aisho. I know we can't exhaust this discussion today. So sorry about that. Nigeria happened to you. Yeah, so as we round up this conversation, I just want to take it from this dimension, just in one minute each. And to Mr. Ashim, let me put this forward to you. We are looking at the solution way forward now. But as you make your contribution, I want you to look at it in line of where you see this administration, where you see Nigeria to the end of this administration as you profile your solution. Mr. Ashim, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Michael. Nigeria has everything it needs to succeed. All we need is a reordering of our strategy. Now, Mr. Aisho was talking about budgetary processes, giving out contracts and all that. There is a fiscal discipline law. We have almost every law concerning everything that should make all these things work effortlessly. Value for money, revalue for money. There is also the financial acts. There are several acts. There is the procurement law. All these things are there. But where are the institutions making them work? So the solution to all this is the fact that, number one, the leaders have to sit down and know that, there are three phases. I categorize it as three phases. There was a time that government is government. There was a time of what you said, Michael, that government has no business in business. Now, in the 21st century, government is a business. If you are going to consider and scrutinize major governments in the world, they run it like a business. In fact, many of the people, they think more than businessmen do, because capitalists are very wise and trickish. And if you play into their hands, they will buy you. They will make sure the entire country is indebted to them. So if you are going to run a government in the 21st century, you have to think like a businessman. And unfortunately, we have leadership that is still thinking back in the 1960s. So government has gone beyond government has no business in business. Government itself now in the 21st century is a business. The second part is the knowledge-based economy. So we have gone beyond fossil fuel. That is where we are still. See, the 21st century has even gone beyond agricultural economy. We are now in the knowledge-based, because when we are talking of diversification and people are talking about, yes, we have to diversify into agriculture, the world has left agriculture. So if you have the granite pyramids in Kano and the cocoa in Ibadan, even now, it's not going to satisfy you, because the world has moved forward. And until you are industrialized nation that can process what you have, and so instead of selling the cocoa elsewhere, process the chocolate and then export it. That is the economy we are presently. And until we get there, so for as long as we kept diversifying, in quotes, we are just diversifying poverty and stupidity. The world has gone beyond where it is now. And that is why I started from the fact that in the 21st century, when you govern a nation, you are not only governing a nation. And that is what also has to do with sovereign wealth funds that you asked Mr. Oluwadele earlier, and SS crude account and all that. When you govern a nation, you are not just governing an entity. You are also competing against possibly 500 other nations and 300 other international organizations that are waiting as predators to feed on you. I wanted to make a final point. Presently, if you look at the World Bank, so the way the World Bank is formulated is such that every country has a stake. So when we want to vote for anything in the World Bank, America, for an example, has about 15% of votes. Nigeria has 0.77% based on how much they have as a stakeholder in World Bank. So if America says yes, that yes means 15%. If Nigeria says no, that no means 0.77%. And these are foreign interests, and they are not philanthropists. China doesn't have money to throw away. In fact, China is praying that we've spent everything in the sovereign wealth fund, spend everything in ECA, spend everything, such that they can now use the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos as a collateral to go and take loan and use the airport. And that is what happened in Zambia and Mozambique. So the truth is, if people are asking the government to spend it, please go ahead and spend it. It's simple. So when you are governing a nation, you are not governing an entity in the 21st century. You are also competing against 1,000 other forces who are much more smarter than you are, who are much more brilliant than you are, and who are thinking in the future. And there's also something the president just, which is the MTF, the medium-term expenditure framework. I looked at the document. So if you are talking about there are documents, there are plans. They are already planning for 2022 and 2023 on how much they are going to be borrowing, which is up to excess of 70% of how much they will need to pay salaries. No nation will survive like this. It's inside the MTF. The MTF was just submitted to the Senate, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. No nation survives like that. But unfortunately, we have a leadership that is not only myopic, but presently they are not in tandem with the 21st century running of government. Government now is business.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Shun, for that contribution. And I hope our political actors out there are listening to what we are saying here. Mr. Paul, in just 1 minute, what is your own solution to the lingering problem at hand?
I think there's so much has been said. I wish we have an executive or somebody who works in the National Assembly here taking note.
I will take your message across to them.
Please do. Anyway, just like Sean already said, I think it's high time that people come to the realization that the world has moved on. You know, each time I see Nigerians debating online, they're talking about agriculture, this, agriculture, that. I've lived in the UAE where my wife was, we're on the video call earlier today, my wife was saying, it's as if it's going to rain, no? So she was excited. She was, I pray it rains. This is a country where it probably don't rain 5 times in a year, in the whole year, okay? And for them to even have up to 4 or 5 rain in a year, they will have to go and do something in the sky. You know, that's a small country that is doing that. Yet we have all of these things, but sometimes I just get tired, and I don't want to sound, too pessimistic. But I think we probably need it. Maybe one day, maybe these people will wake up. That's why we keep talking. That's why this opinion sharer is there, so that we keep talking, and then to also keep our sanity, so that we don't run mad when we are not able to express these frustrations as Nigerians, whether you live in Nigeria or you live abroad. you know. But then I am hoping that, like Michael said, that somebody will take the message to them. But really, I think the future today is in the knowledge economy. Earlier today, and I'm going to share this, this is personal. I was asking one of my sisters to register for an exam. You know, she had to do an exam online. And throughout her day, she was going up and down in the last 3 days, looking for you know, a reasonable internet connection or cafe where she could do it, but we couldn't find. Well, she got to one place today, and then those people said they wanted to close at 3 p.m. I said, what is the time? He said 3 p.m. They are going to close shop at 3 p.m. Can you imagine? This is a business that will not even open on Sunday. They will not open at all on Sunday. An ICT center wants to close at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Maybe they are going to church. I have nothing against church, but these are some of the things that is a major or fundamental problem. It's not. It's embedded in us, and we need to heal ourselves. We need to find a way to cure ourselves of it. Until I went to the UAE to work, that's when I know that Nigeria, we don't work. You know, coming from a civil service, really, I am made bold to say I'm one of those people who escaped Nigeria civil service, because your brain will be dormant there. There are so many brilliant people in the Nigerian civil service whose brain have become dormant. When you speak to them, you know that this person could be a potential brilliant person. But because the system, you are not using your brain. More than 90% of the people that are in civil service in Nigeria, you don't need your brain to work. You know, it's just like you don't need your brain to eat. Anybody can put food in their mouth. Anybody can prepare food. That's the way an average Nigerian civil service works. You know, like Sharon said, it has become business. Each time I spend money here in India to promote a page, you know, or to run an advert on Google, they take the task. They take the task. As soon as I put my money, as soon as I connect my card and put money in Google or Facebook's account, they separate the task separate from it, and it goes directly. It's not as if we will take it later. No. When I buy card, when I buy card on my smartphone, for instance, if I subscribe or if I buy, maybe I want to call Nigeria, I buy 100 rupees. 20, it is only 80, 85 or 82 rupees that comes to my phone. The remaining already go to the government straight. Okay? You cannot argue. Yeah, I mean, you want to argue with your phone. But we are not even thinking about this. I was looking at the debate in the National Assembly yesterday, where they were talking about whether to use technology to receive.
Mr. Paul, if you want us to go into that conversation, I'm not sure we'll end this discussion today, because that one is another monumental shame on its own. So I think I crave your indulgence not to even talk about that at all.
Okay. Thank you. I will stop here then. I just hope that
it's quite funny. Yes, I understand your bone of contention, your argument, but it's quite shameful if we be talking about that in 21st century. Sorry to actually jump into the conversation, and I think we'll run the discussion up with the village boy. Your concluding statement, and perhaps if you see Nigeria getting a debt pardon again, just like we had in 2006 with the Paris Club debt that Nigeria was owing. So just talk about that and then give us a concluding statement.
You're getting to the level of making permutation about getting debt pardon.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, that idea actually flipped to me when I was sleeping, when I was rolling over my bed in the night. I think the idea of she was saying that government should be run as a business is different from the general known notion that government has no business being business. They are two different things, and unfortunately, we have combined the two here. So what Shane is saying that government should be run in the way that, you know, when you are running business, you are talking of your input and your output, and you remain in business when your output outweigh your input. When what you are putting in and what you are getting out of what you put in is more, is greater than what you are putting in. That is basically what he was saying. It's not saying that government should go and establish business. I think I need to clarify that. So, having said that, we need to put our acts together. See, we've been too lucky so far. We've been surviving. We are not thriving. But even the survivor, if we continue like this, we get to a point that we will no longer survive. And I wish we don't get to that point. But it's beyond wishful thinking. We have to change our orientation. We have to see that manna no longer falls from heaven. There's no cheap money anywhere. So look at as beautiful as telecommunication is, it has changed the life of Nigeria. But Nigeria is one of the most inefficient telecommunication in the world. Look at how many times it has to be pulled, coming in, pulling out, coming in. Even today, I think maybe Michael went for vigil last night, because incidentally, Michael has never hung today. This is the first time it's happening. Usually, even as the host, it will be off and off. So I think maybe you have done some miracle. So we need to, Nigeria again, that's one major thing we have to realize. We are ruled more by emotions than by reason. And when you talk of knowledge economy is not economy of emotion. It's the economy of reason. Thinking outside the box. Yes, agriculture is still valuable, provided you can explore the value chains that are supposed to be attached to agriculture. You cannot, like Shane also said, you cannot be drying your cocoa and sending it abroad, and you cannot, and what they give you is no longer sufficient for you to even buy the byproduct. Remember, chocolate is just a byproduct of cocoa. You are the original owner of cocoa, what you are getting as return cannot buy chocolate. So the question is, what stops you from making the chocolate yourself? Ghana has gotten to that level now. They are producing their own chocolate. They are producing their own cocoa tea. Am I surprised that I have some pack of Ghana raw cocoa tea here that I drink? I asked them to get me the Nigerian made. Like they say in 7-Up advert, the difference is clear. That does not mean I'm not patriotic. So, but I still try to do Nigeria something. So maybe when I buy 2 of Ghana, I still buy 1 of Nigeria, so that they won't say I'm not patriotic. But when I'm drinking Nigeria, I know what I'm drinking. I drink it, I just close my eyes. Not that I really enjoy it, but when I'm drinking that of Ghana, I relax because I know I'm getting quality there. I'm not putting Nigeria under the bus. We need to put our acts together. We need to change our orientation. We need to make effort. So if your output will be greater than your input, you need extra effort beyond the sentiment. So all those things that even are causing fight or trouble in Nigeria, there are things that we should have overlived. See, when people are busy, when people are generating prosperity, they are generating wealth. They don't have time for all this nonsense. Look at though I would not want to comment on this publicly. Look at one of the embarrassing comments we have when we are having this conversation, and we see all this kind of thing. Some they are drawn to the wall. Some it's like game, they gamble. Okay, what if they give me? So Nigeria, then the people, the people rights, the people obligation to demand accountability is something we should continue to emphasize. If people are demanding accountability, I bet you the government will not take them for granted as they are taking us for granted in Nigeria. Taxation has 2 sides. There's the obligation aspect, there's the responsibility aspect. So there's also the accountability aspect. If people are paying tax, they have the boldness or even the pain to demand for accountability. Like Paul was saying, okay, if you buy something of 100 rupees and you know that 20 rupees is going to government, so the pain that you are losing that 20 rupees make you to say, look, you want to put your eyes, shine your eyes, they will say in Lagos, on whatever government is doing because it's your money. But now government, let me tell you fundamentally, Nigerian government don't believe that the money they are spent belongs to the taxpayer. They don't understand the concept, the idea of a taxpayer. They don't. And that is how they do what they like. Whatever they give you, you take. They don't see you, we call them civil servants, but in the actual sense, they are civil masters. They don't, a civil servant doesn't see you as a Nigerian, as the one that is paying his salary. It is government that is paying his salary. Unlike here, when somebody is paid, when you receive anything from government, you know that you are spending taxpayer money, of which you yourself, you are a contributor. So government doesn't understand that concept. That's why they don't give us respect. They don't give Nigeria respect because as far as they are concerned, the money is coming from oil or from borrowing. It's not taxpayer. There's no taxpayer mentality. I don't know how we can create, maybe Paul and Michael put that together. How can we create taxpayer mentality in Nigeria? I think that's a topic we should consider. Taxpayer mentality. Taxpayer mentality demands accountability because the truth is that nobody wants to pay tax anywhere in the world. If you put the 6.something billion people in the world today and ask people to raise hand who want to voluntarily pay tax, you may not see 10. You may not see 10. You will say nobody wants to pay tax. So, but now that you don't have a choice and to pay tax, people say, okay, fine. If I have to pay tax, then I have to see which is the impact of the tax. What are you doing with my tax? My money is my sweat. Nigerian government don't see the money spending, the sweat of average Nigerian.
Yeah.
And that is very fundamental. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Village Boy, for the concluding statement from you. And of course, we must sincerely appreciate our audience joining us from across the world. Of course, we are very, very grateful. And I must sincerely thank Mr. Sheun joining us from England, the Village Boy, and Mr. Paul. I must sincerely thank you. And of course, Mr. Isowo joining us all the way from Ilori, Nigeria, in absentia. We are very grateful for all the contributions you are making, and you have made rather. And we encourage our audience to tune to this platform as we continue to discuss issues, and we are interested in educating. And should there be any contribution you have, we are just a dial away. Go to our Facebook page, make your comment, or perhaps to our website, make your comment. We definitely get in touch with you or give you the needed feedback. So once again, we have discussed about this again, Nigeria and the rising debt profile. It is your duty and my duty to make Nigeria work, and we will march forward. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Olaogun Michael. Thank you.